Hey y'all, today I want to talk about something I never really discussed before, and basically, y'all know, for all my returning viewers, I sort of dislike modern society. Now, that's an understatement, but basically, I just don't like how us humans have to function, right? We're expected to chase for money, join the rat race, and constantly expected to just chase for digital numbers on the screen, right? So many people invest in stocks and invest their entire livelihoods on trying to make money, right? So the kids could have better futures, right? So today I sort of want to discuss about why I just don't see the point of having kids and why I would never really have kids in 2025 in our current modern society, right? Now, if you ask me this question, maybe like 20 years ago, maybe I would have considered it, but having kids nowadays just seems very wrong, right? If you look at the bigger picture, like how screwed up our society is, the cracks are showing, and really, it comes down to a lot of things. So today I will be discussing all that. And I know this may be sort of controversial. Some of you watching this may have kids on your own, or you might be considering having kids in the future. Now, this is just my opinion, so just take it with a grain of salt, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from by the time you get to the end of this video, which may be long or short. So basically, first thing I just want to get off my chest is that I absolutely hate labels, right? Some of you probably know the term antinatalist or antinatalism, right? Which is basically someone who just thinks that giving birth, right, producing offspring is morally unjust and wrong, right? Now, I spoke a lot about how morality is pretty much a social construct, meaning that society pretty much designed like morality just for the ruling class or oppress the working class, right? It's almost like something that's designed by humans. And it's interesting to think about how so many people just think that we should have kids. That is a social norm, social requirement of a functional human being. Like, if you don't consider having kids, you yourself selfish, right? And humans have been reproducing for thousands of years, right? And it's interesting to think about how much has changed since then. And if you ask me this question like maybe 20 years ago, I may have considered having kids, but in 2025, in today's stone age, not so much. And it's unfortunate how I have to hold back sometimes, right? People get offended super easily. And it's unfortunate how I can't really, say too many things around certain topics just because sometimes people just end up like hating me like a lot. And I've been getting sometimes, people who don't really like me that much, which is completely fine. But sometimes it just gets a bit out of hand, right? I don't want too much negativity or drama in the comments, so hopefully y'all understand where I'm coming from. But basically, let's take a step back, all right, before I talk about kids and having kids, right? So first of all, I just noticed that recently there hasn't been any newly established movie, right? Like, majority of movies nowadays have just been recycling old IPs, right? Intellectual properties like Mission Impossible, Fast and Furious, Godzilla. Like, how many freaking of these movies are we gonna see, right? Also, Jurassic Park. It's like so much remakes, so much parodies, so much spin-offs, so ridiculous. Not just movies, man. It's also music, right? I feel like there's not much of a sound nowadays. Like, you probably know what 80s music is like the synthwave, 90s music, and around early 2000 there was a lot of alt rock bands, right, that were very popular, like The Calling, The Script, the Frey, right? And Goo Goo Dolls, right? Iris. So basically, what I'm trying to say is that the society has really changed and shifted nowadays. I feel like people are overall less original nowadays. People just like recycling old songs and putting their own spin and take on it. People don't like inventing new things, sadly, because people just like reusing things that works and generates the money, and that's the issue with capitalism. It kills creativity, right? Now, it's unfortunate how a lot of people also feel nostalgic of the past, right? And you probably get where I'm coming from now, why I don't think it's the best time to have kids, because think about it, your kids are going to be experiencing what we're all going to be experiencing right now, right? The world around us, there's tons of wars, tons of chaos in the political realm, and lots of unjust. A lot of people are just overall fed up with the way we are being treated, right? How the government isn't exactly doing their job, right? They claim they're trying to take the best care of their citizens, but sometimes they just aren't very transparent, and it almost feels like all our livelihoods are just being utilized just so we can be cogs in this machine, just so we can be workers and be slaves, right? It's a shame how life has to be like this, and really doesn't have to be like this. And basically, what I'm trying to say is that it's unfortunate how a lot of people are also going through a lot of struggles financially or through addiction, right? They might have cigarette addiction, or they might have some drinking problem, and it's kind of astonishing how some of these people actually have kids, right? Maybe it's by accident, but some of them seriously considered having kids. I remember reading about Eminem, like the rapper, backstory. Apparently his parents were sort of lunatics. So that's sort of example of why not everyone should have kids. Also, another reason why I feel like not many people should have kids is because of genetics, right? I know some of you might think I'm taking this a bit too far, like how, come on, just because you're ugly doesn't mean your kids are going to turn out ugly, right? But I'm talking more specifically about like defects, like the actual life-threatening defects, right? Like blindness, maybe autism, or like if you have, some sort of infection or disease like measles, right? Probably don't want to have kids because they might inherit some of your diseases and illnesses. And it's kind of crazy how some people just end up having kids just because of themselves, right? They might think that they have kids. Actually, this is one thing I want to talk about, is about why so many people want to have kids nowadays. And I feel like it has to do with people expecting kids to sort of pay them back when they're older. Like, let's say when you retire, you don't have anyone to take care of you, right? So you want your kids to probably visit you in the hospital, to see you, every week, to check up on you, feed you, cook you meals, right? That's probably the majority of the reasons some people want to have kids, right? They don't want to be alone when they're in their deathbed, right? They want to have someone to comfort them. And it's really unfortunate how so many people have kids for selfish reasons. I know, humans are inherently selfish. This is just the way life is. Some of you might say, like, go deal with it. Like, some of you might also say right now, look at you. You're never even going to have a girlfriend in the future. But this is besides my point, alright? I'm speaking this from an objective manner. Like, even if I do end up having the opportunity to have a kid, I just don't think it's the right thing to do, Even though this isn't exactly the right, correct, logical thing to do in the world, sadly. But basically, it's unfortunate how, like, so many countries, if you look at Korea, that's a very good example. Like, one thing I learned recently was that basically Korean society functioned in a way where parents were investing way too much on their kids, like stocks, right? Basically turning their kids into commodities, right? They're trying to get them into the best universities, trying to grind and get them to work as hard as they can. And a lot of times end up, causing mental stress and just a lot of depression. And it's a shame how a lot of people just want their kids to do well. But sometimes I feel like in this capitalist society, parents go a bit too far. And it's a shame how a lot of kids nowadays just don't really have a sense of real direction because their parents just constantly just, you know, make them live life a certain way. You don't really get as much freedom as you want. And so many people actually go to college nowadays. Like maybe like 30 years ago, less people even went to postgraduate schools, right? Like universities, colleges, community college. A lot more people have access to education, which means it's more competitive in job market. You have to consider this. If you were having kids nowadays, your kids might not be able to even have a job in the future, right? Because of AI. AI supposedly it's going to replace majority of jobs in the future. And no, I know some of you might say we're all going to go by universal basic income, right? Everyone's going to get a fair share, but I feel like you have to really look at other points as well, like how kids nowadays just end up not being as healthy mentally and physically as before, right? Just a lot of kids just playing on their iPads nowadays. They don't really take the time to pursue creative professions anymore, right? Like everyone wants to be a dang doctor or like a nurse or accountant, like something that's like stable, something that's less creative, more data driven, right? And it's unfortunate how if you're having kids right now, you pretty much expected that they're gonna just conform to society, right? Conform to social norms, become a part of the cog in the machine, be a slave, and just contribute to society. It's a shame how like life has to be like this, right? It really doesn't have to be like this. Yeah. And I know some of you might say like it's family tradition to have kids, or I kind of want to experience fatherhood, motherhood, right? All that stuff. But really, you have to put yourself in your kid's shoes, right? Like, for example, like right now, I just feel like a lot of people right now, young folks right now, are just like fed up, right? Like I heard recently that a lot of people getting out of high school right now are struggling to find jobs because countries are outsourcing the workers to other people from other countries to pay them less, right? It's how money works, capitalism works. They're trying to reduce people's pay. And it's a shame how foreign workers are taking over our job markets. And I know some of you might think I'm selfish, like how you might say like my parents sacrificed them to raise me, which is true. My parents moved out of China just to raise me, to help me maybe find a better life. But no matter where you go in the world, there's always going to be struggle, right? And I'm speaking this more from someone who's like a lower middle class. Like obviously if you're rich, well off, like if you're Donald Trump's kids, probably going to be chilling. But if you're the vast majority of folks, probably don't. It's probably not the best thing to have kids, because your kids are going to probably struggle financially, go through a lot of things, issues, psychological problems. Like they might have an identity crisis. They might end up, you know, being attracted to someone same gender, right? Like there's a lot of things that can happen, right? Like a lot of times they might be struggling with a lot of things. And I know I'm just speaking this very broadly, but sometimes it just affects their everyday life, right? Like it might take them years to recover, and they might stay sinking like a teenager because they regress, right? That's how people refuse to move on from the past. And it's really saddening to see a lot of people just mindlessly having kids without putting any effort into thinking about the future, right? They just think about themselves and how, yay, this is a celebration. They kind of treat having kids like an anniversary for the marriage, or even getting married, like a milestone for their life. But you have to consider the person as well, like the fetus. And it's a shame how so many people nowadays have a narcissistic, egocentric mindset where they just put themselves first. Don't really think about the future. Don't think about their baby's future. And yeah, that's basically what I really want to talk about. I think I skipped a bunch of stuff, but hopefully you understand where I'm coming from. I'm just frustrated with how is it socially acceptable to just mindlessly have kids, government pushing people to have more kids because they are worried that future generations are going to have too much old folks, right? Not enough young people in the job force and workforce. And society's going to collapse if you don't have any more kids. But at the end of the day, it's your choice and it's people's choice, right? But this is just my opinion on why I would never really have kids. Yeah, that's basically it. Thanks for listening, honestly, to my rant, and hope you all have a great rest of your day or night, wherever you are.